Hello, everybody. I promised you a few weeks ago that I would produce videos answering the questions that you have regarding tithing and giving and money and all of those things that we've had the opportunity to think through and speak about in our most recent sermon series. And so that is what I'm going to do right now. But before I do, I just want to be honest with you. I want to be upfront. I am not a financial advisor of any type, but I am a pastor. And so I'm going to do my best to answer the questions that you have from a biblical perspective. I'm going to do my best to present to you and to teach biblical principles, biblical teaching in answer to the questions that you have. So that's what we're going to do right now. And the first question that was sent in to me was this: should you tithe if you are in debt? If so, how do you calculate it? What a great question to ask. Really helpful. You can tell that this person is desiring to tithe and to give on to the Lord, but they are coming up against a personal obstacle, which is the debt, the financial debt that they have. It may be small, it may be large. And they're asking, how do we give? Should we give? I need to pay off all of my debts, but I also see that the Bible is saying I should give onto the Lord and tithe onto him. So what do I do with that? And so this is a really helpful question to ask, but it's also an incredibly relevant one to ask, because we all live in what I would call an indebted society. And what I mean by that is that the majority of the people in the society that we live in are in debt. Just think about this for a moment. If you have a mortgage on a house, what is that? It is a debt. If you have a student loan, if you are paying off a car, if you have a credit card, if you have a loan, those are all debts. And so we all live in an indebted society where the majority of people have debts to their name. And so this is an incredibly relevant question. But what we've done in this indebted society is that we have framed some of the debts as positive, some of them as negative. And I think that this person is talking about a negative debt that they have, or what we would call a negative debt that they would have. Because I can't imagine that somebody would be asking this question in regards to the mortgage that they have on their home. I would assume most people would still tithe and give while they pay off the mortgage on their home. I expect this person is speaking about a credit card or a loan or something of that sort that we have framed as a negative debt. And so I'm going to do my best to answer this. And my answer is this. I personally believe that if you are in any debt of any kind, if you're going through a rough financial season, then tithing is still a responsibility and a privilege of the Christian. Now, why do I think that? I think that because all the money in the world, all the money that you and I have is not ours, but it is the Lord's. And we have been given the privilege and the blessing to manage his money, to steward his money. And though it is important to pay off our debts, and that is a spiritual practice, and tithing is a spiritual practice, it is tithing which the Bible teaches as the practice which honors the Lord as first in our lives. It is tithing which says to the Lord that we recognize that all the money we have is his. So take the first, take the top of that money. Now I know that it is tempting to throw all the money that we earn to pay off all the debts that we have. But if we do that, then we are missing out on giving God all the praise, all the honor, all the worship and the glory that is due to him in our finances. If we do that, we also miss out on the faith and the discipline and the blessing that giving and tithing onto the Lord brings to us. And so this is what I would recommend, because I believe, should give on to the Lord, but we should also pay off the debts that we have. So this is what I would recommend. Prioritize your tithing, and then cut back your spending elsewhere on leisure, entertainment, Maybe you need to reevaluate how much you're spending on food and fuel and things like that. Prioritize tithing, cut back spending elsewhere, and make a repayment plan for the debts that you have. Make a repayment plan for the debts that you have. In summary, what I'm saying is prioritize your giving onto the Lord, and then build everything else around that. Build and manage and strategize everything else around that. And this can happen. I have countless friends that I know personally who have stories, who have testimonies. And in fact, you can go online and you can find countless stories people have where they were in debt, some of them up to their eyes. And they loved the Lord, but they could not get out of the debt that they had. And then they were encouraged, and some of them even challenged, to begin to tithe, to begin to honor the Lord with the money that he had blessed them with. And as they began to give unto him, as they began to tithe, what they found was they began to be able to pay off the debts that they had. They honored God, he honored them. They sowed and they reaped. Now, none of them received £100,000 overnight. But what happened was that God provided for their needs. God blessed them, and day by day, week by week, month by month, they began to be able to chip away at the debt that they had. As they began to honor him with their money, what they found was that they received the wisdom, they received the help, they received what they needed to come up with a plan and to come up with the provision to be able to pay off the debts that they had. And so, friends, it's important to ask the question, why would God ask us to do something he won't provide for? Why would God ask us to do something that would put us in a worse off place than we were? God has promised that as you give unto him, he will provide for every need that you have. I believe that promise is true. And so I believe that if you're in any debt of any kind, prioritize your tithe, prioritize your giving onto the Lord, and build everything else around that so that you can pay off the debts that you have. Now, though I think that, what I must also add is this: though tithing, I believe, is a priority, extra offerings are not. Though we are to be generous, and the Spirit may lead you into certain needs and certain times when you are to give extra, but you shouldn't feel a necessity outside of what the Spirit leads you to give any extra offerings. Instead, I would focus on sowing and reaping through your tithe to the Lord, paying off those debts that you have, and then just wait to give extra offerings until you're in a better financial place. And then I just want to end with this, where I want to say, there is no shame here. There is no condemnation here. The Bible is clear. Though I believe Scripture teaches that tithing is a wise principle, a pattern in Scripture God has blessed us with to know how to best live financially and to honor him financially. Though I believe that, though I am teaching that this is an open-handed issue, and the Bible is very clear, you need to decide in your own heart, prayerfully and scripturally, you need to decide in your own heart what to give onto the Lord. And so there is no shame here at all. But what I would say is, as you decide in your own heart, make sure that giving to the Lord is a priority, however much that is, however much you prayerfully and scripturally decide. Make sure that giving financially is a priority. Make sure that the Lord is not the last thing, but the first. And build your repayments, build your savings, build your spendings around what you give to the Lord as the first, not the last, however much that you decide that is. I hope that's been helpful for you.